So I'm about to join a D&D game soon, and it got me to thinking about alignment, because this is an evil alignment game, and the fact that you have to mention that says a lot about the culture, and that, you know, they try to make it out like good alignment do good things, but in reality, I have rarely ever seen anybody who claimed to be good alignment both in-game and out do anything remotely good. At best, they do what's lawful alignment. Because if you do something that is expected of you that is closer to a lawful alignment than it is a good alignment. Good alignment is doing good things because it has good results. It has nothing to do with what is expected of you. So you could, in theory, be lawful and good at the same time, but the fact that you're putting more emphasis on what is good as perceived makes you more lawful than it does good. And this is why we have trouble with paladins in a lot of Dungeons and Dragons games. So, on that note, you know, most people classify me as chaotic neutral because we all know how I stick to my principles, but they're not in league with what most people would define as good, but they're not necessarily evil, as I do fight evil myself. So, you know, I think back on when I played Mass Effect 2, and while it was a terrible game mechanics-wise, and BioWare is just greedy as all hell, it was a good exploration in morality. Not so much the choices you made, but the characters you interacted with, and who you related most to. You know, it was kind of funny how the one I related most to and made a bro out of was the Arankar chick. I forget her name, but basically she was super psychic, and Arankars are like the Mary Sues of Mass Effect. They're like space elves. And people were upset because you couldn't motorboat her tits. But she's also supposed to be like really old, but you know, Arankars, they're beautiful no matter what because they're the Mary Sues, so. But what I liked about her was more principles. And I was like, no, more principles. And Grunt was like, Shepard. So, you know, that was my team. And, you know, it gives a better portrayal of how you go about morality in situations like that. When you take the time to relate to people and how you relate to them and why you relate to them. And the fact that I most related to Grunt and to this samurai chick says a lot about my character. And, you know, I don't understand why people don't get that out of Dungeons and Dragons. You know, they try to, but they go about it completely wrong. They think they either have to do good because it's expected of them, and they have to both be good both in-game and out. They have to both, you know, portray themselves in good as defined by Dungeons and Dragons standards, and by real-life standards, because God forbid they should disturb anybody at the gaming table with their moral choices. Then they probably, I hear it all the time on 4chan, oh, they got kicked out of my game. Well, that wasn't very good alignment. Not only was it not good alignment because that's a shit move to do to somebody that you're playing with, but they're your friend. You don't do that to your friends. That's not something you should have to be told. The fact that we live in a society that prefers to tell us to do other things besides stick to your friends who have your back and have had your back for a long time says a lot. Clearly we're not living in a good alignment society. I would even argue that no society is good alignment. At best, they can be neutral alignment. We live in a world of neutral and evil alignments. And this is not to say that morality is relative. That quite the opposite, in fact. It's just that there is a very objective evil, and there isn't a whole lot of good to go around. That's why I love that song, Land of Confusion. So, you know, it's something to think about, and people, you know, just are going to say, oh, well, Jim Prophet thinks the world is grimdark. Meanwhile, when Jim Prophet usually writes stories or makes an RPG or something, they tend to be a little bit brighter. Well, maybe not bright. There's another terminology. What's it called? Noble bright. And when I tend to make games and stuff, they tend to be grim bright. They're not noble. They don't support you being like the Power Rangers, Super Sentai type of good guy that fights the bad guys and wins, and you're the champion and you're glorious and proud. You know, it's a very gritty world, but at the same time, it's also colorful, and it's also optimistic. There's a lot of cartoon shenanigans and comedy points to it. And this, that, I guess that exemplifies my character. That exemplifies me as a person that, while I know that we live in dark times, probably everybody that's ever existed has, in some way or another, it doesn't mean you can't have hope. It doesn't mean you can't have morality. You just have to be realistic about it. And that, in essence, is, that grim, bright setting. The fact that in a dark world, there has to be somebody that at least tries to be heroic. I'm trying to think of what would be a noble, dark setting. What comes to mind is like Vampire the Masquerade, because Vampire the Masquerade is about keeping face, diplomacy. There's not a whole lot of combat going on, but at the same time, it's a very despicable world, full of decadent and vile vampires that run the mafia and the government and things like that. So in a lot of ways, noble is like the lawful alignment of genre, bright is the good, grim is the chaotic, and dark is the evil. So, just as in Warhammer 40k is grim dark, because everybody's just killing each other and trying to one-up each other for, just for tyranny's sake and everything. And then you have the noble bright settings that take an unrealistic standard of just being a cartoon super hour. Then you have my, grim bright settings that try to take a realistic portrayal and have more of an anti-hero vibe, but are not overly, it's not overdone. And then you have the noble dark settings, which are more realistic evil settings of how, people conspire and they don't always kill each other and shit, but they screw each other over a lot. And this game hasn't started yet, so I don't know if this evil campaign is going to be grim dark, noble dark, or grim bright. I guess that depends on how the players make it out. So it's just something that crossed my mind, and I figured I'd share it with you.